And there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another incredible installment from very high above all the puerile and rancid forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Friday. And as is always the case on Fridays, there's a bit of a news dump. So we're going to go down those few stories. Probably the biggest one is Alan Simpson has passed away. There's some other ones. Doge is making some headlines. And Representative Harriet Hageman had a town hall last night in Afton. And I've got, you might say that I've built my own tinfoil hat. Some of you people out there already say that I wear one all the time. They're horribly mistaken. But anyway, I have a theory about what happened at Harriet Hageman's town hall. And then I've got several other stories that have been percolating throughout the week. So we'll do all of that on today's program. But first, it's Open Line Friday. That's right, my friends. Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics Live. This is the day of the week where we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. You don't quite understand the risk I put myself under for Open Line Friday. Just, opening things up, and, I never know what's coming, whereas every other day during the week, I pretty much know what everybody's talking about, because we're always going to talk about what I want to talk about, because it's my show, and I'll do what I want. Anyway, my friends, Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics Live, and we begin this morning with Alan Simpson. He has passed away at the age of 93. A longtime Wyoming senator from the cow pie. They had an article up first thing this morning, and I quote, "Wyoming is mourning an almost larger-than-life statesman in former U.S. Senator Al Simpson. He'll be remembered as much and maybe more for the way he carried himself as a human being rather than solely his political achievements. Simpson spent the days after his life at the Spirit Mountain Hospice House in Cody after suffering serious circulation problems in his feet and legs, resulting in complications. He leaves behind his wife of 70 years, 3 children, and 1 brother. Today, our state... Okay, so there's a statement from the family. Most recently, Alan Simpson helped open the Heart Mountain Center. And, the truth is that Alan Simpson did serve the state of Wyoming for a very long time. It began in 1965 when he entered the Wyoming legislature, and he served all the way through, I think it was 1997. Let's see if the article says it here. Let's see here. 1962 campaign, helped his dad, 76, served in the state legislature through 1977. He was the minority whip from 1987 to 1995. So a long record of service to the great state of Wyoming. And we may disagree with somebody's politics, but we have to acknowledge that for a very long time, Alan Simpson served the state of Wyoming as a state legislator, as a senator. So long time. Now, I mean, the politics surrounding Alan Simpson are a little bit different. He was not the stalwart conservative that we were all led to believe, or that I was led to believe when I was younger. He definitely was pretty much in the middle. Perhaps he leaned left. There are a number of really radical left-wing organizations that Alan Simpson was part of up until the time of his death, one of which is called American Promise. Now, that might sound a little bit familiar. It's the mothership of a Wyoming group, or a alleged Wyoming group called Wyoming Promise, which is run by State Representative Ken Chestic. And his whole mission is to get a constitutional amendment to do away with the Citizens United decision, to do away with corporate funding of elections. And it's interesting that when and I've got a soundbite somewhere where Ken Chestic is saying that, oh, no, this is completely grassroots funded and it's all Wyoming money. But when you look into it, yeah, well, they're funded by the mothership called American Promise. And there's a whole bunch of nefarious people that are part of that. And I'm not saying that Alan Simpson was nefarious. I'm saying he was part of a nefarious group. So anyway, I mean, there's two sides to every story, and we definitely don't want to speak ill of the dead. But we gotta look at everything with open eyes and see both sides of the situation. And the truth was, Alan Simpson was not a conservative. He did serve the state of Wyoming for a really long time. For that, we are all grateful, I guess, and it's sad for his family that he's passed away. So my thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Alan Simpson, his lovely wife. I met her several different times at various events. So my thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. So yesterday, Harriet Hageman had a town hall in Afton, and this is the 70th one that she's done. It's a ton for any one of our elected representatives. Liz Cheney, well, I mean, she went for I don't know how many hundreds of days without talking to a single Republican in the state of Wyoming, or a single conservative, or the Republican Party. So it's definitely something that our elected representatives have not done before. So 70 town halls, and she was in Afton last night. And let me just read you an article in the Cowboy, because the whole town hall kind of went off the rails. Well, kind of is not really the way to describe it. But there were a bunch of protesters there. And while the town hall was for the town of Afton, it ended up being taken over by protesters from Jackson Hole, from the Cowpie. And I quote, Harriet Hageman was cheered, applauded, heckled, and questioned during a spirited Thursday night town hall meeting at the Afton Civic Center. An overflow crowd of more than 250 people packed the meeting hall in this far western Wyoming town for a political tete-a-tete with Wyoming's only U.S. House member. While it never became unruly, the gathering many times turned aggressively feisty. Now, I don't know what the difference is between unruly and aggressively feisty, but evidently, it got pretty fired up. I mean, I have a quotation from Representative Hageman from a different source and said, yeah, it totally got out of hand. And then, of course, the Cowpie's version of it is, no, nobody really got out of hand. So the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Let's see here. But the overflow crowd of over 250 people, and while it never became unruly, the gathering many times turned aggressive. And I quote, "You represent us too," was thrown out more than once from the crowd, which included a healthy contingent from Teton County. The local Democrat Party there organized a carpool train to drive people to attend what was Hageman's 70th town hall around Wyoming over the last 3 years. Throughout the evening, shouts of, "Show it to us, prove it," were peppered among applause from receptive and approving Star Valley locals. The most animated debate was sparked when Hageman began outlining the efforts of the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, which she said has so far saved taxpayers $105 billion. I think it's probably more than that. I've got a couple of pieces this morning where DOGE is targeting programs that are, $30 billion. So it doesn't take very long for those to add up to more than 105. But in any case, it's a lot of money. While she lamented U.S. tax dollars being spent on things like $500,000 to advance atheism in Nepal or $4.5 million for Kazakhstan to fight internet trolls, Hageman said there are huge sums being spent on stuff that nobody in Congress ever approved or would approve. Quote, whether it's transgender comic books in Peru or millions in Politico subscriptions, Congress has never voted to explicitly provide funding for all these items. One of the largest uproars from the crowd came in reaction to one man in the back saying that Elon Musk is a, quote, unauthorized billionaire who is messing with all of us. That drew loud cheers from some and boos from others. One woman blurted out that the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, which has been targeted for much of this type of wasteful spending that Hageman cited, couldn't have all been bad. Representative Hageman's response was, quote, surely, oh, no, this is from the heckler, surely they do some good things, she said, drawing an immediate upswell from people disagreeing with her. Hageman didn't miss a beat, saying that about 17% of all the spending of USAID is on good things. And what I'm saying is that all of these programs have been reviewed, and 17% of them weren't nonsense, she said. Now think about this. All of the billions of dollars that we have funneled through USAID, only 17% of them are actually legitimate. If that doesn't underscore the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse in a lot of these government programs, I don't really know what does. And I mean, it's absolutely incredible that we have allowed this level of spending to continue for as long as it has. Now, the rest of the article goes on to talk about some of the other questions and hecklers and all of that. But what drew my attention is this was a town hall in Afton. Now, I'm not exactly sure. I guess we could Google it. How far is Afton, Wyoming to Jackson? Let's just find out. Afton to Jackson, Wyoming. Okay. So let's see here. It's about 70 miles or an hour, little over an hour and a half between Afton and Jackson. So not exactly all that far. I've driven to Casper for less than a Hageman town hall, but that it was organized and that it was a carpool. I wouldn't put it past any Democrat party in Wyoming to organize such an event. I've got some great audio from a Democrat event here in Sheridan that I'm probably going to play for you next week. I'm still working through that story. So I don't think it's beyond the pale that the Democrat Party would organize such a protest. And let's just be honest, that's what it was. The Democrats showing up to complain about Doge getting rid of all of the handouts that the left has become so used to. And so we could see that. But I have a different theory, and I want to emphasize, maybe this is a hypothesis, not exactly a theory. We've got to be careful with words here. Words mean things.
2 plus 2 is 4, not 5 if you want it to be 5. And this is not to be discriminatory. This is to stand up for language. Words mean things.
Words mean things. So we got to be specific in the words that we use. So this isn't a theory. It is a hypothesis. So it's an idea with some facts that happen to fit the theory. Well, there is this group called Indivisible, Indivisible Action, actually. It's a major left of center group. And you remember that website I always tell you about to go look stuff up, influencewatch.org? Well, this is what they have to say about the Indivisible Project, or otherwise known as Indivisible. The Indivisible Project is a left-of-center tax-exempt organization headquartered in Washington, D.C., and it is definitely part of the Resisting the Trump agenda. Let's see here. The organization was founded by two left-wing activists, and I'm quoting here from Influence Watch, with congressional experience and ties to the left-of-center economic policy group Prosperity Now. According to a spokesman within the organization, Indivisible's goal for 2018 is to replace all elected officials who don't reflect their will with diverse, progressive local leaders. Since 2016, Indivisible has sponsored events like Resist Fest in Santa Cruz, cardboard congressman demonstrations in Republican-controlled congressional districts, and local Resist Trump Tuesday meetings. Indivisible claims to represent over 5,800 groups and has a website that has been viewed over 18 million times. It was established by this guy named Ezra Levin and Leah Greenberg in December of 2016. And it was originally organized as a movement along the lines of the conservative Tea Party, opposition to President Barack Obama's administration. To that end, Levin and Greenberg's first project was a 26-page political organizing manual called A Practical Guide for Resisting the Trump Agenda. And guess what they do? They set up town hall meetings and invite congressmen across the country. And the whole idea is to get people to a place and try to force the member of Congress to show up. And if they don't show up, this group really doesn't care, because rather what they really want is to have a no-show. So they'll have an empty seat or an empty chair, or they'll even have a cardboard cutout of that individual. Now, I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened in Afton. I'm saying this is a possibility, because it is, we have seen radical organizations operating inside, like right in Teton County before. If you've listened to Cowboy State Politics for a long time, you'll remember the episode that I did about Issue 1 and Liz Cheney's appearance in Jackson. Issue 1 is run by this guy named Nick Penniman. Nick Penniman is one of the head guys at the Democracy Alliance, which is a far-left funding clearinghouse. That's major funder is the Open Society Foundation, or George Soros. And they were right in Jackson. So, I mean, the head guy's right there on stage with our congresswoman. And interestingly enough, nobody in the media asks, who is that guy? Why is he hanging out with our congresswoman? And what is he doing in our state? Nobody asks those questions, except for me. And I dug into who this Nick Penniman guy is. So my only point here is that it is not unheard of for radical organizations to be operating within the boundaries of Wyoming, the Four Corners, and within Teton County. Let's be honest, there's a ton of money in Teton County, so it's really not that big a stretch. So some of the groups that this indivisible project is associated with, you're going to love this one, the Democratic Socialists of America, the American Civil Liberties Union. I mean, those guys always pop up somewhere. MoveOn.org, Planned Parenthood, the Workers' Families Party, and the Tides Foundation, or spooky dude George Soros. The Tides Foundation, quoting again, is a funding partner of the Indivisible Fund, now Indivisible Civics. Founded in 1976, the Tides Foundation is a pass-through organization and a pillar of the left. Nevertheless, Indivisible claims not to be part of the Democratic Party establishment. In 2017, the group publicly distanced itself from contributions made from groups that supported Hillary Clinton and others. So, and by the way, Kenneth Vogel, a reporter at the New York Times, attributed growth in Indivisible to funding from prominent liberals, including the tech entrepreneur Reid Hoffman, as well as foundations and coalitions tied to the Democracy Alliance. Remember, and again, this is just a hypothesis, so, I might be drawing lines that don't necessarily connect, but they have ties to the Democracy Alliance. Remember Nick Penniman with the Liz Cheney event? Yep, he's one of the founders of the Democracy Alliance. So clearly, there's a connection there. I'm not saying it's the connection, but it's not unheard of for those outfits to be operating inside Teton County. Interestingly enough, Alex Marlow, who is the editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, had a guest on, and let's see here if I've got her name. I believe I do. All the way up at the top of the stack of stuff. Okay, so from Breitbart News. On Thursday's Alex Marlow show, Republican Liberty Caucus National Secretary Jessica Bowman talked about funding behind protests of members of Congress. Bowman said that Indivisible's Ezra Levin and Leah Greenberg, who I just told you about, know how to get money from the government and brag about their ability to do so, and people affiliated with Indivisible go as if they're grassroots and pretend to be Republicans in order to pressure members of Congress, and the Open Society website shows that they get money from George Soros. She further stated, so what they intend to do is between March 15th and March 23rd, and yesterday was March 13th, they're going to show up in all of the district offices, and in advance, they're going to try to pressure both Democrats and Republican members of Congress to create town halls local to them. If they don't create the town halls, they'll create it for them. They'll invite them, and if they don't show up, they'll have a cardboard cutout of a clown or a chicken or something like that to represent in the room. to basically mimic them and mock them for not showing up, basically to shame them. So what I'm saying is that the circumstances kind of seem to fit the theory. The timeline from this organization seems to fit it. And that there was a protest, or there was some sort of group that was organized in Jackson and traveled an hour and a half to Afton to infiltrate the Harriet Hageman event. So it's I don't believe in coincidences, my friends. One of the first things I learned when I started the program is that in politics, especially in Wyoming, there are no coincidences. That if it looks like they're tied together, the chances are the two things are probably tied together. Well, here's a piece from the Alex Marlowe show that was recorded yesterday, I believe. It's either yesterday or this morning, and he's talking to Jessica Bowman, and it's the audio of the piece that I just read to you. Now, it's a little bit long, but we'll go ahead and play it just so you can hear it from the source. Here we go.
I feel like this used to be the entirety of the left-wing grassroots was all just this AstroTurf operation, but this seems to be one of the biggest, most nefarious right now. But tell us about this group.
So ahead of the 2020 election, I was starting to look into where the left is funneling money and also how they're getting so organized, because they started getting really organized. They started investing in technology, and they started doing more what I've seen in the Tea Party and in my involvement in the Tea Party. And so, like, what's going on here? I'm watching them actually use coalition tactics and, as you said, AstroTurf, looking as if they're grassroots and showing up and trying to challenge the Trump agenda. And that was what we saw under the resistance movement. So I actually found a group that was responsible for it, and I really started tracking them and eventually infiltrated them. And in doing so, I was learning that, wow, they actually stole a document from the Tea Party and they made millions of dollars off of it. So they were completely funded by millionaires and billionaires and all of their type of organizations to operate as like a manager between all the different leftist organizations that they have, whether it be like a 501c3, 501c4, or PACs, or even like promoting candidates.
Okay, hold on just a second. So she's listing off all of these major left of center organizations, and I would refer to them as radical left organizations. But I want to stop here and just to say that there's a tendency in Wyoming to say that these things don't happen here, that we don't have all these radical groups in here. This is Wyoming. Those things don't happen. Absolutely ridiculous. So the guy that is and let me just give you an example here. The executive director of the Wyoming Education Association is a guy named Ron Sniffen. Ron Sniffen also at one time was and he may still be, the treasurer of the Equality State Policy Center. Guess who one of the major funders of the Equality State Policy Center is? Well, it's a labor union that is closely tied to the Center for American Progress. The Center for American Progress has kind of been the point of the spear of a lot of leftist organizations. Oh man, since probably when Bill Clinton was in office. I'm not exactly sure when they started up, but I mean we're talking quite a long time. So the Center for American Progress gets a lot of money from George Soros and his before George Soros handed it off to his kid Alex Soros. But anyway, lots of left-wing money. And so those things happen in Wyoming, and one of the guys who's the treasurer takes checks from these types of organizations is the WEA. Another one is Representative Liz Storr. She has and is the head of the George B. Storer Foundation. Now they're a very similar organization. Liz Storr funds a lot of left-wing outfits. She's one of the major funders behind WyoFile, the High Country News, lots of different organizations that are clothed in conservation, but really they're a mechanism by which to transmit information, leftist information. And I've done a number of episodes on all the radical links with the George B. Storer Foundation and Liz Storr. So anyway, those groups do exist in Wyoming, and to assert that they don't is absolutely ridiculous. If there's one place that they're going to exist where there are a bunch of Democrats, wealthy ones at that, it would be Teton County. right there in Jackson. There's a bunch of lefties that live there. So anyway, it's entirely possible that all of this is happening. But let's continue listening to the Alex Marlowe show and what Jessica Bowman has to say.
They claim to not do that, but they most certainly do promote candidates. So I saw them doing that, but also I saw them undermining everything that President Trump was trying to do by targeting both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats, and calling them out when they don't vote accordingly, using multiple tactics like phone calls, emails, showing up in their offices, holding town halls. Even if the member of Congress won't show up, then they would hold an empty seat town hall or have like a cardboard cutout of these members of Congress. So when I started seeing them do that, I was like, wow, this is really interesting. They absolutely did take this from the Tea Party, and they openly brag about it in their Indivisible Guide. So they formed in like 2017. I discovered them probably about 2019. And that was really
all right. That's probably enough of that. But all I'm saying is it's a hypothesis to explain what happened at Harriet Hageman's town hall last night. And it also could be true that it's just a bunch of crazy Democrats that decided to go to Jackson and protest, or go to Afton and protest Harriet Hageman's event. That's entirely possible. I'm just saying that it's interesting that I found all this stuff the morning after Harriet Hageman's town hall, and that there are radical organizations that do exist in Wyoming. So we should keep an eye out for them, and we should try to find out exactly who organized last night's protest. If it was organic, I doubt. I mean, there's almost nothing that happens in the Democrat Party that's organic. The Democrats don't operate like Republicans do. You heard Alex Marlowe say, a lot of this activism that looks like it's grassroots on the Democrat side really is what he calls astroturf. It's just made up. It's fake. They've ginned it up. There have been a lot of protests on the National Mall in response to conservative gatherings. And when the left wing shows up, it's labor unions, that have organized it in response to something conservative that's happened. So anyway, it's entirely possible. I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm not saying that that's a fact. What I am saying is it's a theory. It's a hypothesis that happens to fit the facts. You always got to look into these people because you never know where they're hiding. I'll keep looking. Maybe we'll find something there. We'll continue with the program after the break. Christmas is over, and all of the fun holiday cheer has been had. And what are we all left with? Frigid Wyoming weather. Below freezing temperatures that you still have to go out in. That's right, you do have to go back to work at one point or another. And not to scare you, but think about this. Every single morning, you get to scrape the ice off of your windshield. Now, while I can't do anything with that, I can make sure that your feet stay nice and toasty warm while you're doing it. All you have to do is order a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. And to get you a pair of them, go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you're not going to be disappointed. Wyoming is one of the most sought-after places to live. There's a lot of people that want to move to our great state. And if you're thinking about selling your house to one of them, you need a real estate agent that you can trust. That agent is Rebecca Bextel at Compass Real Estate. She's lived in Jackson for almost 20 years and has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market. Last year, she sold almost $25 million worth of property. So if you're thinking of buying or selling, give Rebecca a call. Her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out.
It's Open Line Friday on Cowboy State Politics Live. If you've got something that's on your mind, something you want to talk to me about, the phone number here in the Cowboy State Politics studio is 307-374-8989. It's Open Line Friday on the program. One thing I forgot to mention before the break is that the major focal point of all of these protests, and before the break, we were talking about the Harriet Town Hall, if you're just now joining the program, how it was infiltrated by leftists last night. But one of their main targets is Doge, that they really don't like what Elon Musk has been pointing out. And really what they don't like is all of the handouts coming to an end. Man, when you've got the gravy train coming from the government and, you're using USAID to do it. We had a report that Stacey Abrams received a $2 billion grant from USAID. But one of their main focal points is Doge. And that was one of the things, and it mentions it in the Cowboy State, the Cow Pies piece on this, that one of the major points of contention was when Representative Hageman started talking about Doge. So anyway, more facts that happen to fit the theory, or the hypothesis rather. But there's another person that is really a fan of Doge, or at least he was a long time ago. There's a video that's going around X that is Barack Obama talking about all the waste in government. And, in the age of AI, it is really, really difficult to figure out what is authentic and what is not. I mean, it's I've seen some pretty convincing videos that are absolutely fraudulent, but this one, I watched it 2 or 3 times, and man, I mean, if it's not legitimate, somebody spent a heck of a lot of time creating this. But here's the sound from the Obama Doge speech or video that they put out. Take a listen to this.
Everyone knows that getting rid of the deficit will require some tough decisions. And that includes cutting back on billions of dollars in programs that a lot of people care about. But what should be easy is getting rid of the pointless waste and stupid spending that doesn't benefit anybody. Waste we should be getting rid of, even if we didn't have a deficit. Sure, some of these cuts aren't that big, but no amount of waste is acceptable. Not when it's your money. Not at a time when so many Americans are already cutting back. Just as families are living within their means, government should too. Did you know the federal government pays for a website devoted to a folk music ensemble made up of forest rangers? They're called the Fiddlin' Foresters. I'll put their music on my iPod, but I'm not paying for their website. And there are hundreds of similar sites that we should consolidate or just get rid of. By the way, you're not only paying for websites no one needs, you're paying for thousands of buildings all across the country no one uses. For the last decade, the government's owned a massive and completely empty warehouse in the middle of Brooklyn, for example.
Okay,
Now,
all right.
the government-
Stop. Okay, we all know that that's the case. There's a whole bunch of crap that the government spends money on that we really don't need to be spending money on. And the same holds true for the state of Wyoming, by the way. Yeah, I've heard throughout the session, I heard a lot of people saying, well, Wyoming needs its own Doge. I kind of agree with that. We do need an auditor that does some auditing. Our elected state auditor, by the way, doesn't audit a darn thing. That's not her job. It's just the title. I mean, I know it's totally weird, but in Wyoming, the state owns a whole bunch of buildings all across the state that are either completely vacant or have been or are just not used at all. I guess that would mean vacant too. But anyway, there's a lot of state property that we just need to unload. Government does not need to be in the landlord business. We only need to have that small amount of property that is necessary: city halls, courthouses, the state capitol, those things. And we might even make an argument that we don't need the state capitol with as much crap as comes out of there. But the same holds true in Wyoming. But it's interesting that old Barry was the guy bringing up all this cutting of wasteful spending. So all of the Democrat outrage against Doge, really, it's kind of ginned up. AstroTurf, as Alex Marlowe calls it. So, again, when the left screams about all these cuts, maybe we ought to just point back to the leftist in chief, former leftist in chief, and just say, hey, man, your buddy Barry, he was all about it. Let's move on. There's another piece in Breitbart, and this one is called Trump Hammers Wall Street Journal, declares that the U.S. doesn't have free trade. And I quote, President Donald Trump hammered the Wall Street Journal, which has been highly critical of his tariff policies, and declared that the U.S. does not currently employ free trade in a pair of True Social posts on Thursday. And I quote, in one post, Trump wrote that the newspaper ideologically aligns with the European Union's polluted thinking. Here's what Trump said. The globalist Wall Street Journal has no idea what they are doing or saying. They are owned by the polluted thinking of the European Union, which was formed for the primary purpose of screwing the United States of America. Their Wall Street Journal thinking is antiquated and weak and very bad for the U.S., But have no fear. We will win on everything. Egg prices are down, oil is down, interest rates are down, and tariff-related money is pouring into the United States. Trump then paraphrased FDR by saying the only thing you have to fear is fear itself. Trump followed that up with another post moments later contending that the U.S. has stupid trade rather than free trade. Now, the post came a day after the Journal's editor-in-chief where did it go? The post came a day after the Journal's editor-in-chief, Emma Tucker, appeared on Fox Business and said Trump's tariffs had changed the mood of business executives. Quote, it's very interesting how the mood has shifted pretty much since all tariffs started coming in, she said. I think businesses realize now Trump is serious about this. But the problem they've got is they're being imposed in a very haphazard way, and that's creating a lot of instability. No doubt, that's the part that Trump was reacting to. He's not going to even allow anyone to say that all of this is haphazard. When you're doing a negotiation or any sort of deal, there's different tactics that you use. And we all know from the first Trump presidency that that's the way he operates. Ask for way more than what you want, and sometimes you'll end up getting exactly what you want. It's called negotiation. So, and really, that's what a lot of these tariffs boil down to. If you want to play ball with the United States, then we'll do that. And, the biggest offender in this whole not really free trade thing is China. And by the way, I have to tell you, I really missed how Trump says China. Anyway, but we import tons and tons and tons of their products, and really there's no tariff that's charged whatsoever. But when we export products to China, they slap a giant tariff on it, taxes, just so we can sell our products in China. So it's not fair trade. It's not even free trade, not anywhere close. And as Trump said, it's pretty stupid trade, if you ask me. From the Washington Free Beacon, Trump administration terminates $20 billion in Biden climate funding over fraud, waste, and abuse concerns. And I quote, and again, this is from the Free Beacon. The Trump administration terminated $20 billion in grants the Biden administration awarded last year to 8 environmental nonprofits, citing concerns over fraud, waste, and abuse. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin notified grant recipients of the action Tuesday evening and explained in an announcement that incidents of misconduct, conflicts of interest, and potential fraud related to the funding proposed an unacceptable risk to taxpayers. The action came after a comprehensive internal review, and is consistent with separate ongoing federal investigations spearheaded by the Department of Justice and the FBI. Quote, the EPA has determined that these deficiencies pose an unacceptable risk to the efficient and lawful execution of this grant that cannot be remedied by imposing specific conditions, necessitating immediate termination to safeguard taxpayer funds and ensure compliance with the federal financial assistance regulations, Zeldin wrote in letters to the groups obtained by the Washington Free Beacon. The EPA is committed to ensuring that federal funding is administered in a manner that upholds transparency and accountability and the highest standards of fiscal responsibility, he continued. This termination reflects the agency's duty to protect public funds and maintain the integrity of its grant programs. Now, all of this climate funding, and $20 billion is only the beginning of it, because it is nothing but a big, giant green scam. And it's interesting they chose that word because really the whole thing revolves around money. I've told you several times that there's no possible way that a one of these windmills will ever turn a profit, that they'll wear out before they actually pay for themselves. And the only way that they're profitable is through government subsidies. And it shocks me when you drive from Cheyenne to Casper. I think it's right around Midwest or right outside of Casper anyway. There's this, and at night you can just look over and there's so many windmills. It looks like the aliens are landing, man. It's just red flashing lights all over the place. Now just think about how much of your money went into the pockets of those people that construct these things. I mean, they're huge. I don't know how much one of them costs, but it got to be a tremendous amount of money. And to think that they will never turn a profit as long as they operate. It's just a giant money suck, and it's all dependent upon taxpayer funding, which is why Lee Zeldin and the EPA is looking at all of these so-called green energy scams and just terminating them. And right here, $20 billion. And the thing is, my friends, you and I probably have no conception of what $1 billion is. I mean, I talked to several state representatives this week, and I've just asked them all the same question. Hey, man, do you understand how much of $1 billion is? And the answer I have received from every single one of them is, I don't know of anybody that really understands how much money $1 billion is. And that's not even saying anything about $1 trillion. You know what I need to do? I need to go back and figure out exactly how high a stack of $1 billion $1 bills would be. And I did it a long time ago on the program, and I can tell you that it is an amazing comparison that you really have no idea whatsoever of what's happening. Now, another interesting I don't know, it's not even really a controversy, but a political sideshow is a better way to put it. And it's Congresswoman McBride, Mr. McBride. They were in a committee meeting, and the chairman refused to refer to he as a she. So Congressman McBride appears to be a woman. Long hair, and I mean, really, identifies as a woman, claims to be transgender, all that spiel. Well, in Congress, they have refused to acknowledge his preferred pronouns. So first, let's see here. I think right here, this is the committee meeting, so you can hear exactly what happened, and then we'll talk about it.
Recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, did you catch that? Let me rewind it again.
Recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, is what Mr. McBride said to the chairman. Now, this is a point that the media is not focusing on. So this whole controversy probably started because it's a tit for tat between Mr. McBride and the chairman. He clearly calls the chairman madam. So my guess is this may have irritated the chairman of that committee a little bit. But listen, I mean, this entire thing is a setup, because listen to what happens next.
Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply.
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America, please?
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency?
Have you no decency, sir?
I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this.
You will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
So what is the right way?
This hearing is adjourned.
To play into their fantasy that a man can become a woman? That doesn't seem to be correct or right. And I mean, it's the halls of Congress, right? We should be accurate in what we say. It seems to me that's ought to be how Congress operates. But there again, Congress really does very little that makes a lot of sense. But that was the committee meeting. Now, I want you to listen to what was happening. Another instance of where Mr. McBride was recognized by the presiding officer. Now, this one is on the floor of the House of Representatives. Listen to this.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Delaware, Mr. McBride, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When I was elected...
All right. You see there, no controversy when they were on the floor, but there was controversy in the committee meeting, which tells you that it was a total setup to begin with. And, you caught right there at the beginning, Madam Chairman, that it was a total setup. Well, now the Democrats are going full-blown apoplectic. And you know what? Before I play this, let's go ahead and take another break. And we'll play the soundbite after an extraordinarily outrageous profit timeout. So we'll do that next. We'll finish up in just a second. You can listen to Cowboy State Politics live every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. on the Independence Network. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics.
Concerned about the future of Wyoming, but unsure how to help? Honor Wyoming is giving you the chance to create real, lasting influence. And it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. The Honor Wyoming Bill Tracker is designed to empower Wyoming voters. We're cutting through the noise and equipping you with all the info you need to keep tabs on Wyoming lawmakers, as well as the tools to take action on the issues that matter to you most. Keeping a close eye on key legislation in Cheyenne, we've made it easy to stay informed by providing real-time bill updates and timely take action alerts. Our one-click links make it easy to email key lawmakers at the right time. All you have to do is click and your voice will be heard, ensuring lawmakers are listening to the people they serve year-round. Protecting the Wyoming way isn't a spectator sport, and voting is only half the story. Get involved today and do your part. With the Honor Wyoming Bill Tracker, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. I'm your host, David Iverson, Wyoming's conservative voice, documented to be almost always right 99% of the time, a record that nobody else should even try to come close to. It's just, all you got to do, my friends, is just check your facts and correct yourself when you're wrong. But, if you're checking everything ahead of time, then you don't even have to worry about that most of the time. Now, before the break, I was telling you about this McBride congressman who thinks that he's a woman and demands, well, it's actually his colleagues that are demanding that he be addressed as, as the congresswoman in Congress. But he's not a woman. He's a man. So I just played, before the break, I played you a couple of sound bites from the committee meeting and then one on the floor. Let's play the one on the floor again so you can see that he picks his battles, but here's that one.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Delaware, Mr. McBride, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When I was elected...
All right. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So he doesn't have any problem with that, but he does have a problem with it when he's got the whole thing set up and he refers to a chairman as Madam Chairman. That's something that we actually saw in the Wyoming legislature, too. And it's a leftist tactic. It's disrespectful. And, And you know, the left is claiming that not addressing someone by their preferred pronoun is disrespectful. Well, that is insisting that somebody deny biological reality. And it's, you know, if you want to be addressed as, you know, Frog Iverson or, you know, Frog, whatever, that's not reality, right? And you shouldn't force people to, especially Congress, to address you as something that you're not just because you want that. Well, the left is in full-blown meltdown mode, and here is what happened on The View. Of course, those nutcases went absolutely apoplectic, but here's what they said on The View.
What's your plan when a dangerous blackout strikes? Maybe you've stocked up on extra.
United States of America, please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency?
Have you no decency?
I mean, I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this.
You will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
Total setup.
This hearing is adjourned.
That's right. Good for him. So the people of Delaware voted for Congresswoman McBride. So why is it so difficult for people to understand that she was elected by her constituents? They know Sarah McBride. So I say, if you're so concerned about protecting who you consider women, why don't you spend less time monitoring bathrooms and address the material mortality crisis in this country when it comes to when it comes to black women? Why don't you end the...
All right, so again, Whoopi has to switch something that has absolutely nothing to do with race into something that has to do with race. And why should someone have to be... Why should we insist that men not use women's bathroom? Because the women's bathroom is for women. Why should we insist that men not play on women's sports teams? Because they're for women. Interestingly enough, Governor Gordon did sign a couple of bills yesterday. I mean, he's been pretty slow in doing so, but yesterday he signed Senate File 44, which was the Fairness in Intercollegiate Sports bill. So now in Wyoming, it is illegal to identify as a female when you are a man and play on the women's basketball team. Rightfully so. It's just an entirely ginned up controversy, and it was a setup from the very beginning to create the intended result that I just played for you on The View. Now, really, what it's done is created a bunch of news articles that are making fun of the whole situation. And it's, you know, the left thinks that this has an impact. Like I said, there was an exchange in a committee down at the state capitol in which a protester or someone who was testifying referred to Senator Tim French as Madam Chairman. Let me see if I can find that real quick for you. We'll do a quick search. Nope, I'll have to find it for you later. But anyway, the funny part about that soundbite is Tim French replied, "My preferred pronouns are Mr. Chairman." Absolutely ridiculous. Well, let's see. We've got about 7 minutes left in the program. So let's cover this one. We've been hearing a lot about how the auto pen was used to sign a lot of pardons. And this piece is from The Blaze. It's entitled, "Is the Fauci Pardon Legitimate? Auto pen signatures cast doubt on the legality of Biden documents." And I quote, "Anthony Fauci, retired General Mark Milley, and others with questionable track records received controversial pardons just prior to Biden leaving office. A new signature analysis conducted by the Heritage Foundation's Oversight Project indicates that the same exact Biden auto pen signature appeared on each of these pardons. This revelation regarding the use of the auto pen signature device, coupled with evidence of Biden's diminishing agency while in office and previous allegations concerning his sidelining, has prompted some critics to wonder who was actually dispensing pardons, as well as about the validity of the controversial pardons themselves. Contrary to CNN's assertion last year that the use of the auto pen was a rarity in the Biden administration, the Oversight Project reported Thursday that nearly every single executive order, pardon, and other consequential document researchers could find from Biden's presidency bore a machine-generated signature. While other presidents, including Donald Trump and Barack Obama, have used the so-called auto pen, there are indications that document signings during Biden's tenure were repeatedly undertaken while he was absent, as in not in town. Now, and let's see, let me scroll down. So there's one picture that I saw on X of the pardons, and it's the pardon very specifically says, signed before me this date at the White House. Well, on a couple of these pardons, several of these pardons, almost all of them, I guess, Biden wasn't anywhere near the White House. In fact, he was playing golf in another state. So the question is whether or not these documents that were signed with an auto pen are actually legitimate. Let's see here. The auto pen findings could open up legal challenges. The White House acknowledged that the Federal Aviation Administration funding extension was signed in May 2024 using an auto pen. It was suggested that Biden, traveling in San Francisco at the time, had sought to avoid a lapse in funding and was cognizant of this taking place. Biden has, however, cast doubt on whether he was always in the loop when documents were being signed in his name. The former president allegedly told House Speaker Mike Johnson that he did not remember signing a January 2024 order to pause decisions on exports of liquefied natural gas. This suggestion fueled suspicions that one or more individuals in Biden's orbit had usurped the presidential powers. The main legal question here is who was the president over the last 4 years? Oversight Executive Director Mike Howell previously told The Blaze. That's what we are aiming to uncover. The prolific use of the auto pen by the Biden White House was an instrument to hide the truth from the American people as to who was running the government. On January 20th, just hours before leaving the Oval Office, Biden allegedly issued a number of pardons, citing the need to protect the recipients from potential revenge by the incoming Trump administration. Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, whom Trump has accused of committing treason, nabbed a pardon, as did several members of Biden's family. Now, the question is, if the president didn't sign them, are they legal? I would say that because the document says signed before me this date, such and such at the White House, that, that kind of means that he wasn't there, he wasn't the one signing it, and it wasn't before him in the White House. So we're going to have to follow this story and find out if any of those things that the former president signed are actually legal. It's a big question. Presidents use the auto pen to sign, large quantities of documents. I have somewhere in the studio, I have a picture of Donald Trump that I was pretty sure was signed with an auto pen. But think about it, right? You're presented with, 1,500 pictures, and you say, well, you got to sign every one of them, Mr. President. Yeah, obviously they're going to use the auto pen for that. There's no reason why you wouldn't, but that's not an official document. It's not something that says, yes, I'm the president and I'm running the government. So another big controversy from the Biden White House. Well, we've burned up another busy broadcast hour on the program. Make sure that you don't miss tomorrow's installment of Weekend Update. It's going to be an interview with Representative John Baer, the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. We pretty much get a session recap from him, his perspective on it. And as you can imagine, there are some moments where, he's pretty pointed about what he has to say. So that's going to be tomorrow on Weekend Update. And then on Monday, of course, Morning Reload. Haven't figured out what that one's going to be yet, but make sure that you subscribe and follow the program. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. But for now, my friends, from the base of the Bighorns, the Cowboy State Politics Studio, I'm David Iverson, and this is Cowboy State Politics. Have a good weekend.